right, well, we have Bill Henceroth here. He's going to talk a little bit about the history of soccer. So how did the Henceroth family get involved with soccer?
Well, quite a while ago. I'm going to say Nathan was probably somewhere around 6, 7 years old. He knew somebody by the name of Paul Fenema, and he was coaching in the Salem Rec League. And he asked about if Nathan wanted to play soccer. I knew absolutely hardly anything about the game of soccer. I didn't know the rules or anything like that. And so anyway, we said, yeah, we'd give it a try. So Nathan went and played in the Salem Rec League in the under-8 division, and then did that for like a summer, and then I think it was the following year, then Jesse and Roy also joined the Salem Rec League. So that was kind of our start with soccer for our family. Bob Klool built a field down at Guilford Lake. He was hoping to stir up interest in soccer in this area, and he put a nice field in down there and encouraged what was called the United Soccer Association to form, and Tim Owen became the first president of the United Soccer Association. And so that was the field down at Guilford Lake. I know up in Salem at the rec league there, when both Nathan and some of the other ones got started in that, they played at Buckeye School, and then also at, I believe it was Waterworth Park. And then when Jesse and Roy got going, they also played at Buckeye School. I believe it was Southeast School. They also put a couple fields in there, and they had them kind of all over the place. So that was kind of the first few fields that we all had you guys playing on. The sporting event, that started off with, that was a company based out of Latonia. And Glenn Windrum was the guy who started the sporting event. And I remember talking with him a little bit about it, and he seemed interested in sponsoring a traveling team. And so we went over and got involved over in Canton with the Canton League over there. And so you can see, I see the sporting event, a couple of the shirts there. And that was from Glenn, came up with those. And then, like I said, we played over in a league over in Canton, and we played most of the games over there. Then later on, they did play some games back down in this area, down at Klool Field, down at Guilford Lake. So we started talking about what the future held, and so we started talking about seeing if there was a chance of getting a high school soccer team. And that took quite a bit of work to do. There were a lot of people that were against it. They said that it would ruin other sports programs and a lot of things like that. They found out later on that they were wrong. It really did not hurt any other sporting teams. And so we got a lot of people interested in it. We went to school board meetings, and they saw that we needed to have a high school team. Now the only thing is, to do that at first, they weren't willing to pay for it. So they said we had to buy the uniforms, so we bought the uniforms for the high school team. They also said that we had to pay the coaches, so we paid the school board, and then the school board in turn paid the coaches. And then we also started off by playing all away games because we didn't really have a field to play on. But eventually it got going and took off, and I think it's doing pretty well right now. To get the program started came from the United Soccer Association. And when we would run the rec league, we would have like a concession stand and different things like that, and that raised money and different things like that. So the money came from the United Soccer Association, which was the rec league for kids playing. That was who paid the actual school board. There was a lot of people working together. Tim Owen Sr. was the first president of the United Soccer Association. I remember he came around and talked to different people and told about what they were doing and everything like that. And then I went down and I became vice president. Cindy Snelzer, she was, I believe, the treasurer, and she kind of ran the concession stands and all that to raise money. Crystal Collins was, I believe, the secretary. That's Josh Collins' mother. And so she was involved in that too. We started getting involved with some other soccer clubs like SOI, which was Sons of Italy from up in Austintown. George DeChef was the head of that. And so we started getting some of the players from United went and joined SOI. It was a little bit higher level of playing, and then we went to a lot of tournaments and so forth like that. So that gave everybody a chance to get out and play on a little bit higher level, and did quite well. It surprised a lot of people that we did so well those first couple years, considering we were a startup, and but we had a lot of players that had a lot of good experience playing on a higher level. Once it became an official high school sport, then it was recognized through the state. And that was when we went and played other high school teams and did quite well. Later on, then the school took over, and then they paid for it. But up until that point, the first couple years, the United Soccer Association paid the money. It was kind of a probationary period. They wanted to see how it was going, and as long as it would go well, then they would continue it. If they felt that there were problems, then they would stop it. Obviously, they thought it went well, and it continued. But we started off with a co-ed team, and usually the first couple of years, we'd have 2 or 3, maybe 4 girls would play, and then we got enough players that we had a varsity and a reserve team. So we did varsity and JV or reserve games as well. These jerseys, that was from the start when we had to come up with, we paid for the jerseys and so forth like that. That came from over a company in Canton. And then what we did was we donated those to United for the teams. I ended up coaching because we heard talk. They said if nobody applied, the athletic director at that particular time said he was just going to drop the program. And I went ahead and applied for the job, so then I ended up getting hired for it. Now, I had coached before, though, as the JV coach or assistant coach at United with Andy Smith, because when Andy got hired, he said he wanted me to be his assistant coach. So I became the coach, and then I needed an assistant, so I asked Terry Fowler if he would help me, and Terry became my assistant coach. Pete was Terry's oldest son, and Pete was actually the one who scored the first goal for United Soccer against Canton Timken. That was in the first game. He was the first one who scored. I only was the head coach there for 1 year, and then Terry took over. The program was going well. We had a lot of players wanting to play. Most of the people were very supportive of it and realized that it would work. And what United kind of held out for a while, and they missed out on it because they found out later on a lot of these other schools used soccer players to be kickers for them, but United wouldn't allow that at first. And then they realized they should have done that. A lot of these other schools used soccer players for kickers because they knew they could still play soccer, but they could still play football on Friday night. The Olympic Developmental Program, you tried out for it, and then if you made it, you would get to go to different tournaments and so forth. Like in Nathan's case, he went over and played in the Netherlands, played over in France, played Germany and England with the ODP team. That was before high school. Chantenay, that's the name of a town over in France, and Nathan had gone over, he was going as an exchange student. However, the people that he was living with, they had ties to that, so it was right after Nathan had graduated from high school, he went over and he tried out for them. he made the team, and he played for Chantenay, and he got to travel with them and play with that. It was a professional team, and so he played for a season over there with a team called Chantenay. And as far as I know, I believe he's still in contact with some of the people from Chantenay. He still hears from them every now and then. Chantenay had like 3 different levels. Now, when he first got over there, Nathan had to go play on the first level team. And he said that he played there, and at halftime they came up and told him, you can go ahead and get a shower. And he thought, man, he said, I thought I was playing pretty good, but now they're telling me he said, that's because you're moving up, you're playing with the second level team starting tomorrow. And so he went and played a match with the second level team, and he played one match with them, and then they told him, okay, we're moving you up to the first level team. So then that's who he played with for the rest of the time. And so he traveled on the bus with them, and they traveled around France and played other professional teams in France. And he said he kind of laughed, they called him the little Frenchman. So that was right after he graduated from high school. He had talked to different people who had been exchange students, and Nathan wanted to learn a foreign language, and actually the best way to learn a foreign language is to go and live in another country. And so he had taken French in high school and did well in that, but he knew he needed to go and live there. And so the family that he first went with over there, they put him in there. He said that the first thing they told him was, okay, we're not speaking any more English. We're going to talk all French. That's how you're going to learn. And so then he said they made him learn French that way, because they would, he said they would sit there, like when they would have a meal, they would say, okay, oh, by the way, you don't have a plate, you don't have any silverware or a glass or anything, you're going to have to ask us in French for each of those. So he had to ask for a plate in French, he had to ask for a fork, but they would tell him ahead of time what the words were, but they wouldn't give them to him until he asked them in French. And then that way, they said, well, you're either going to learn French or you're going to be awfully hungry. And so that's how he learned to really speak the French. And I remember later on when we did go over and we visited over in France, and we got to go to Paris, got to see the Louvre and all that other stuff over there too, which was great. And so the family, they were very good to him, and we got to meet them and everything. And it was funny because even when Nathan first came back, I remember the one night he woke up, he was sleeping, he woke up early in the morning, and he came out and he just started talking in French. We had no idea what he was saying. We just looked at him and said, no, we're home. And he kind of like caught himself, oh yeah, because he was just used to speaking French so much. And he is fluent in French. And actually, he got a job at Iowa State working with some of their French students and their study abroad in France. And one of the things that he had to tell them was that he was fluent in French. And he said that the first interview, they got him in there, and they had somebody on a video camera or something, and they started talking to Nathan in French. And he started talking back in French, and then they talked for a few minutes, and finally the guy on the other end said, okay, hold a stop. And he told the people, he said, you don't need to go any further. He's definitely fluent in French. So you don't need to wonder, yes, he is. And so he got that was the first job he got at Iowa State. I first heard about Shawnee State. Nathan got contacted by them to see him. We went down and we visited them, but he ended up choosing Center College to go to. But I do remember Ron Goodson was the coach, and he was real interested in you guys, and he saw some of the videos and so forth, and then he offered both Roy, you, and Jesse, and Ryan Owen some scholarship money to come down and play at Shawnee State. So we went down and visited, And that actually it was a good start for you guys to go down there. I mean, they had really nice facilities to live in. Jessica Vota went there as a goalkeeper, and I remember going down and seeing her playing in that down there. It was NAIA was the name of the league that they kind of were with, and actually she went there on a full scholarship, and she became an All-American there, and so she did quite well. It was with the Salem Rec League, and they couldn't find enough referees. So they were always hurting for referees, and so they came around and said, all the adults, hey, anybody want to become a referee? Then they offered classes for it. You took the classes, and then you took a test, and then you got to be a referee. But that was because they were getting so many kids playing, they couldn't get enough referees to cover all the games. And then what they would do is they were kind of giving the guys a hard time. If you got to be a referee and then you got on a Saturday, they would schedule you for 4 or 5 games back to back. And that's a lot of running to try to keep up with kids and everything. And so that was why they said they needed more referees. So I took the classes and became a referee, and then ended up, that was with the FIFA ones, and then I ended up taking the high school classes and becoming a high school referee. I took the college classes, and I was able to ref a few college games too.
Do the high school pouch?
Yeah, this was from Ohio. Yeah, if you were doing high school, you had to take a special class and pass that as order too. Otherwise, you just took the regular classes, and you could do the rec league games or traveling games and things like that. Teams would come out, and they would have red jerseys. Well, you can't have a referee in red, so I know we started would have that's kind of like a reddish pink, and then it had yellow and black. And when we would go and referee a match, we always took usually about at least 3 different jerseys with us that were different colors, so we could know what the teams were going to look, because we didn't always know what colors they were going to be wearing.
And then even the patch would come off too, right? Because
yeah,
you see how it has a year on it? Mm-hmm. Would you get a new one every year?
You had to take a class every year. You had to take a test and pass the test in order. You didn't just say, okay, yeah, give me the one for next year. You had to go in and take a written test, and you had to pass that. And every year what they would do, they would give you a new rule book. And it would be look it over before you come and take the test. And so we did. Usually what you would do is you would carry this in your pocket. And then if there was a problem, then you would pull this out. Usually as soon as you pulled it out, you could start to see people cringe. Because if you pulled it out, you weren't supposed to pull it out unless you were planning on giving somebody a card. Okay, if somebody did something, let's say they knocked somebody over and it was a little bit hard, but it wasn't all that bad, then you would call that person over, and then you would hold up a yellow card. And then that would let the player know, it would let the fans know, it would let the coaches know that was a warning. So you would give the warning. If a player did something and then they turned around and did something later, and you gave them a second yellow card, if they got 2 yellow cards in the same game, they had to leave the field. They were done.
So 2 yellow cards equals a red card?
Right. Now, if a player came in and just hauled off and threw a punch at somebody or did something that was really bad, you go straight to a red card, and that meant they had to leave the field. They were done. And then usually, depending on the league or whatever you were in, that usually meant they couldn't play the next match either. They were done. They had to sit another game out.
Is there someone specifically who keeps track of that, keeps score, like in a football game they keep score?
Okay, yes. When you'd give a red card or a yellow card, you would hold the card up, you would show them, but you also, that little booklet that I had, you would write down the guy's number.
Okay.
and what the infraction was.
He was like,
And
wrote
you
stuff down
show
here.
that to him? Like
No, you didn't have to. You tell him what it was, but you would write that down. Then when the match was over, you had a form that you had to fill out, and then you gave that to the official scorekeeper,
Okay.
and then they took care of it from there. Okay, well,
I think that's it.
go ahead and edit that.
How come in soccer, they fall down and pretend that they broke their leg, and then they get back up and run 2
Okay,
seconds
well,
later?
I do remember a situation. I was at a tournament and I saw a player fall down and he made it look like he was hurt really bad. And the kid at the time, I was going to say high school age, and I still remember the referee thought he really was hurt. So the referee stopped the match and said, hold it. As soon as he did it, the kid jumped up. He goes, I made you stop the game. And the ref went, hold it. Whipped out a red card, get off the field.
Kicked him out.
He kicked him out of the game, and he had to sit the next game out in that tournament. And then his team had to play with 10 players instead of 11. And that was in the first half, and they could not sub in for him. That ref did not think it was funny.
Yeah.
And he put an end to that real quick, and he said, nobody does that when I'm reffing.